The phone screen illuminates my nightstand at 3:47 a.m., casting harsh blue light across my bedroom. I reach for it instinctively, my heart already racing before I'm fully awake. The name glowing there makes no sense. Henrik van Doren, my son's father-in-law, Saskia's father, the man who, according to every story my daughter-in-law has told over the past 2 years, is supposedly living somewhere in Europe. Vienna, I think she said once. Or was it Stockholm? The details always shifted slightly. Enough that I noticed, but never quite enough to question out loud. I answer because something in my gut tells me I have to. Hello? Beatrice. The voice is thick, slurred with alcohol, but unmistakably urgent. Beatrice Hollingsworth, you need to listen to me. You need to listen right now. Henrik? I sit up, pulling the silk duvet around my shoulders. The Connecticut winter seeps through my bedroom windows despite the heating. It's almost 4 a.m. I know what time it is. He cuts me off, and there's something desperate in his tone that sends ice through my veins. I know I'm drunk. I know you don't know me. But you deserve to know who my daughter really is. You deserve to know before it's too late for your son. My throat tightens. Julian. Everything inside me goes still and sharp. What are you talking about? Come to my house now. Hartford, 847 Maple Ridge Avenue, apartment 3B. He's speaking quickly, like he's afraid he'll lose his nerve. I have documents. I have proof. Things Saskia doesn't know I have. You need to see them, Beatrice. You need to see who she really is before she destroys Julian the way she's destroyed everything else she's touched. Henrik, if this is about some family dispute, it's not a dispute. His voice breaks, and I hear him take a shaking breath. It's the truth she's been hiding from your son since the day she met him. Please, I'm her father, and I'm telling you, begging you, come now, before I lose my courage, before I change my mind and let her keep doing what she's doing. Every instinct I've suppressed for 2 years suddenly screams at me to go. All those moments when Saskia's smile didn't reach her eyes, all those inconsistencies in her stories about her past, her work, her family. All those times I caught her watching Julian with an expression that looked more like calculation than love, and I told myself I was being paranoid, being the overbearing mother-in-law I swore I'd never become. I'll be there in 40 minutes, I say. I dress quickly in the dark, cashmere sweater, wool trousers, my Burberry coat. My hands shake as I button it. In the mirror, I look every one of my 57 years, my highlighted blonde hair disheveled, my amber eyes shadowed with fear, and something else. Something that feels horribly like vindication. The drive through empty Connecticut highways feels surreal. I pass through Greenwich, where every house represents success stories like mine. I built my interior design boutique from nothing 28 years ago, starting as an assistant and working my way to owning one of the most prestigious firms in the state. My late husband Thomas and I created a beautiful life here. We raised Julian in a home filled with love and stability. When Thomas died 6 years ago, massive heart attack at 57, no warning, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But Julian was there. My brilliant, kind, sensitive son, who held my hand at the funeral and promised me we'd be okay. And we were. We became closer than ever, the two of us navigating grief together. Then Saskia appeared 3 years ago. Julian met her at a charity gala, where he was representing his architecture firm. He came home that night with stars in his eyes, talking about this incredible woman who understood him like no one ever had. Within weeks, he was completely infatuated. Within months, he was talking about marriage. I met her for the first time at a Sunday brunch. She was beautiful in that effortless way. Dark hair, striking green eyes, impeccable minimalist style. She told me about her work as a brand consultant, vague but impressive sounding. She talked about her absent mother who traveled constantly, her deceased father, her independent life. She was polite to me, deferential even, but something felt rehearsed. Like she was performing the role of the perfect daughter-in-law rather than actually being one. But Julian was happier than he'd been since his father died, and I was so terrified of losing him too, so desperate not to be the mother who drove her son away with suspicion and control, that I swallowed every doubt. I smiled through the engagement. I paid for half the wedding. I welcomed her into our family, even when things started feeling wrong. Hartford emerges from the darkness, so different from Greenwich. The neighborhoods get progressively rougher as I follow my GPS instructions. When I pull up to 847 Maple Ridge Avenue, my stomach drops. It's a tired 3-story building with peeling paint and a broken security door. This is where Saskia's father lives. Not Vienna, not Stockholm. Here, 35 miles from the luxury life she pretends is her birthright. I climb the stairs, my designer heels echoing on worn linoleum. The hallway smells like old cooking oil and something faintly chemical. I knock on 3B. Henrik van Doren opens the door, and I understand immediately why Saskia never wanted us to meet him. He's tall, but stooped, wearing clothes that were once expensive but are now worn and dated. His eyes, the same striking color as Saskia's, I realize with a jolt, are bloodshot and haunted. The apartment behind him is small but obsessively neat, the home of a man trying to maintain dignity in circumstances that have stripped most of it away. Beatrice. He says my name like a prayer and a confession at once. Thank you for coming. I know what this looks like. I know what I am, but I need you to hear this, for Julian's sake. Tell me, I say, stepping inside. He gestures to a worn couch and sits heavily in an armchair across from me. There's a bottle of Jameson on the coffee table, half empty, next to a laptop and several manila folders. His hands tremble as he reaches for a folder. First, you need to understand who I was, he begins, and who I am now. 20 years ago, I was Henrik van Doren, third-generation owner of Van Doren Textiles. My grandfather built that company. We supplied fabric to half the major fashion houses on the East Coast. I was worth $12 million, Beatrice. I had a beautiful wife, 2 children, a house in Westport that could have been in a magazine. He pauses, swallowing hard. I destroyed it. All of it. I was weak. I drank too much at business dinners, and then I drank too much at home. I gambled, started small, horses and cards, then bigger. I made terrible business decisions because I was too drunk or too distracted to see the problems. In 15 years, I lost everything. The company went bankrupt. My wife Marianne left me and took our son Lucas. He was 18. Saskia was 12. My chest tightens. 12. The same age Julian was when he won his first architecture competition, when life still felt full of promise. Saskia watched it all fall apart. Henrik continues, his voice rough. She watched our house get foreclosed on. She watched me come home drunk more nights than sober. She watched her mother pack up and leave, taking her brother, but leaving her because Marianne said she couldn't handle both children and a divorce and starting over. He looks at me with eyes full of ancient pain. That broke something in Saskia, my sweet little girl who used to draw me pictures and leave them on my desk. She turned hard, cold. She looked at me like I was garbage, and she was right to. Henrik, let me finish. He opens the folder with shaking hands. She changed after that. By the time she was 16, she was lying constantly, creating versions of herself depending on who she was talking to, making up accomplishments, friends, opportunities. She'd tell people her father was a diplomat overseas, that her mother was an artist in Paris, anything but the truth, that her father was a drunk living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hartford, barely making rent, working part-time at a hardware store. He pulls out documents and spreads them on the coffee table. Credit reports, printouts of emails, photographs. She had 2 serious relationships before Julian, both with older men, established men. David Rothman, a real estate developer in Boston. She told him she was a successful marketing executive, made up clients, references, everything. He found out after 8 months when one of his friends happened to know someone she'd claimed to work for. She'd been lying about everything. Her job, her education, even her name. She'd been calling herself Saskia Vandermeer, not Van Doren. My hands feel numb. And the second? Peter Hutchins, a lawyer in Manhattan. Same pattern. She'd reinvented herself as a freelance brand strategist with high-profile clients. Lived with him for almost a year. He proposed. Then his firm did a background check for security clearance on her when she'd be attending firm events, and the whole thing fell apart. All lies. She hadn't graduated from the college she claimed. The company she said she'd founded didn't exist. She'd been taking money from him the whole time, claiming business expenses. He pulls out another document, and this one makes my stomach turn. It's a credit report with Saskia's name at the top. The numbers are devastating. $87,000 in debt spread across multiple credit cards and personal loans. She's drowning, Henrik says quietly. And your son is her life raft. But it's worse than that, Beatrice. So much worse. He opens his laptop, and his hands shake so badly he can barely control the trackpad. 3 days ago, I came to drop off some mail that got sent to my address. She doesn't know I still have a key to her apartment. She and Julian live in that place in New Haven, the one I assume he's paying for. She wasn't home, but she'd left her laptop open. I saw an email chain with a friend of hers. I know I shouldn't have read it, but I did. He turns the screen toward me. The email is dated 2 weeks ago, part of a longer conversation. Saskia's words are there in black and white, cold and pragmatic. Timeline is good. Jay turns 35 in 3 years. Trust fund fully vests then. $3 liquid. In the meantime, I need to secure permanent connection. Stopped BC 2 months ago. Haven't told him. He thinks we're waiting for the right time, LOL. Once pregnant, doesn't matter if marriage lasts. Financial connection to Hollingsworth family guaranteed. And let's be real, Beatrice will pay anything for access to grandchild. It's actually perfect. She has more money than Jay does right now anyway. The words swim in front of my eyes. I read them again and again. There's more, Henrik says. And now he's crying, tears running down his weathered face. I recorded something 2 days ago. She called that same friend, didn't know I was in the apartment, in the bathroom. I had my phone. I recorded it. He pulls up an audio file and hits play. Saskia's voice fills the small apartment, clear and unmistakable. I know it sounds cold, but it's practical. Julian is sweet, he'll be a good father figure, and that's fine. But I'm not in love with him. I'm in love with what he represents: stability, money, respectability. The Hollingsworth name opens doors. His mother's connections could set me up for life if I play it right. This isn't about romance. This is about survival. You know what I came from. You know what I lost. I'm never going back to that. The friend's voice responds, but what if he finds out? He won't. Saskia's voice is confident, almost bored. He's too trusting, too sweet. He sees what he wants to see. And his mother, for all her intuition, is too scared of losing him to actually act on her suspicions. I've seen her watching me. She knows something's off. But she'll never say anything because she's terrified of being the evil mother-in-law who ruins her son's happiness. The recording ends. The silence in the apartment is absolute. I can't breathe. I literally cannot draw air into my lungs. My son, my beautiful, kind, brilliant son who lost his father and put himself back together and learned to be happy again, is being used, calculated, manipulated by someone who sees him as nothing more than a financial asset. Why? The word comes out as a whisper. Why are you telling me this? She's your daughter. Henrik's face crumples. Because I created her. My weakness, my failures, my destruction of our family. That's what turned her into this. I watched my little girl become someone I don't recognize, someone who uses people the way I used alcohol and gambling, someone who's willing to bring a child into the world as a bargaining chip. He wipes his eyes roughly. I can't undo what I did to her. But I can stop her from doing to Julian what I did to my family. I can stop her from creating another generation of damage. He hands me the folders, the credit reports, the printed emails, a thumb drive. It's all here, everything you need to show Julian who she really is. I know what this costs me. She'll never forgive me for this. But she's planning to get pregnant, Beatrice. She's planning to trap your son with a baby he doesn't know is a strategy, not a choice. And I won't let that happen. I've done enough damage in this world. I take the documents with numb fingers. They feel impossibly heavy, like they weigh more than paper has any right to weigh. She's at your house, Henrik says quietly. She and Julian stayed over last night, didn't they? Some excuse about wanting to spend time with you? I nod, unable to speak. Then you need to go home. You need to tell him, before she gets pregnant, before it's too late. I stand on legs that don't quite feel like mine. She'll know you told me. I know. He stands too, this broken man who just chose his conscience over his daughter. But maybe that's my amends. Maybe that's the one decent thing I can do after years of being useless. Save one person from the wreckage. Save Julian, from becoming another casualty of the Van Doren family disasters. I walked to the door, then turned back. The hardware store. You still work there? 3 days a week. It's all I can manage. If you want to get sober, I hear myself say. Really sober, not just trying, I'll pay for treatment. Good treatment. You did something impossibly hard tonight. You deserve a chance to rebuild. His eyes fill with tears again. Why would you do that? Because you just saved my son. My voice breaks. And because everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Even people who've lost everything. I drive back toward Greenwich as the sun begins to rise, painting the winter sky in shades of pink and gold that feel obscene given what I'm carrying. The documents sit in my passenger seat. The thumb drive is in my coat pocket, pressing against my ribs like a coal. 24 hours ago, my biggest worry was choosing between 2 fabric suppliers for a client's dining room. Now I'm driving home to destroy my son's marriage, to tell him that the woman he loves, the woman who made him smile again after his father died, sees him as nothing more than an investment vehicle, that she's been planning to get pregnant without his genuine consent, creating a child who would be a pawn, a guarantee of financial connection. I think about all the moments I swallowed my doubts, all the times I saw something cold flicker behind Saskia's eyes and told myself I was imagining it, all the stories that didn't quite add up, her job with no colleagues, her family that was always conveniently absent, her past that shifted depending on who was listening. I think about the investigator I hired 4 months ago, then canceled after 3 days because the guilt ate at me. I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid, controlling, everything I'd promised myself I wouldn't be after Thomas died. My instincts were right, every single one of them, and I ignored them because I was too afraid of losing Julian to trust what I was seeing. As I pull into my driveway, the sun is fully up. It's 7:23 a.m. I sit in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to prepare myself for what comes next. How do you tell your child that the person they love is a fiction? How do you hand them evidence that their marriage is built on lies and manipulation? How do you watch your son's heart break and know that you're the one breaking it, even though you're trying to save him? I pick up the folders. I get out of the car. I walk toward my house, toward my son sleeping inside with his wife who stopped taking birth control 2 months ago without telling him, who discusses him with friends like he's a business acquisition, who has $87,000 in secret debt and a plan to secure her financial future through a pregnancy he thinks is a mutual decision. My hand is steady as I turn my key in the lock. Whatever happens next, whatever pain comes, I know one thing with absolute certainty. I will protect my son. I will show him the truth. I will help him survive this betrayal. Because that's what mothers do. We face the unbearable truths. We have the impossible conversations. We stand between our children and the people who would use them, even when those people wear wedding rings and sleep in their beds. I open the door and step inside, carrying the evidence of my daughter-in-law's calculated deception. The truth can't be contained anymore. And today, my world and Julian's is going to shatter. I set the folders down on my entry table and stand in the silence of my home, trying to steady my breathing. The grandfather clock in the hallway, Thomas bought it at an estate sale in Vermont 20 years ago, ticks steadily, marking time I no longer have. Upstairs, my son sleeps next to a woman who sees him as a financial instrument. I need to understand how I got here, how I went from raising a confident, beloved child to standing in my foyer at dawn, with evidence that his marriage is a meticulously planned fraud. Julian was born when I was 25, just 3 years after I married Thomas. We were young but stable. Thomas was already making partner track at his firm, and I was building my reputation as an assistant decorator with an eye for elegant simplicity. We bought this house in Greenwich when Julian was 2, a colonial revival that needed work, but had good bones. I remember Thomas carrying our toddler through the empty rooms, both of them laughing, making plans. Those were sweet years, hard years. Building a business while raising a child meant 18-hour days and constant guilt about being enough, but sweet. Thomas was my partner in every sense. He changed diapers and attended school events and never once made me feel like my career was secondary to his. When I took the risk of buying out my boss and starting my own firm at 32, he was the one who helped me crunch the numbers and told me I was ready. Julian grew up watching both his parents work hard and love deeply. He was sensitive, creative, brilliant with spatial relationships, even as a small child. By the time he was 8, he was designing elaborate structures with his Legos that showed genuine architectural understanding. Thomas would sit with him for hours, the two of them bent over designs, talking about form and function. When Julian was 14, Thomas took him to visit Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. They came back transformed, both of them talking over each other about cantilevered terraces and organic architecture. That trip cemented Julian's future. He knew he wanted to create beautiful spaces that improved people's lives. High school was good for him. He had close friends, did well academically, got into Cornell's architecture program. We were so proud. The day we dropped him off for freshman year, Thomas cried in the car on the way home. "We did good, B," he said, squeezing my hand. "We raised a really good human." We did. That's what makes this so devastating. We raised someone honest and trusting because we showed him a world where people could be trusted, where love was real and marriages were partnerships and family meant safety. Julian came home from Cornell for winter break his junior year and told us he'd met someone, a girl named Amy from his studio class. He was 20, in love for the first time, absolutely glowing. They dated for 8 months before she broke up with him because she'd gotten an internship in Tokyo and didn't want to do long distance. He was heartbroken, but handled it with the emotional intelligence Thomas and I had tried to model. He let himself grieve, then threw himself into his thesis project. He graduated with honors at 22, got hired immediately by Hendricks & Stone, one of the most prestigious firms in Connecticut. Thomas and I took him to dinner at his favorite restaurant to celebrate. I remember looking across the table at my son, 22 years old, about to start his dream career, kind and talented and whole, and feeling like everything we'd sacrificed had been worth it. Then Thomas died. It was a Thursday in October, 6 years ago. Thomas was 57, the same age I am now. He'd gone for his morning run, something he'd done 5 days a week for decades. I was in my home office reviewing fabric samples when I heard the front door open. He called out that he was home, that he was going to shower. Normal. Routine. Everything was routine. 10 minutes later, I heard a thud. I found him collapsed in our bedroom, clutching his chest. The paramedics said later that it was a massive coronary event, that he was likely dead before he hit the floor. No warning signs, no prior symptoms, just gone. Between one moment and the next, the man I'd loved for 32 years stopped existing. Julian drove straight from New Haven when I called him. He was 26, establishing himself at the firm, building his own life. And suddenly, he was planning his father's funeral, holding my hand while I made decisions I couldn't process, being strong when I could barely stand. The months after were dark. I went through the motions of running my business, but everything felt muted and distant. Julian called me every single day. He drove up from New Haven every weekend, even when I insisted he didn't need to. He'd bring groceries, cook dinner, sit with me while we both pretended to watch television, and actually just existed in our shared grief. "We're going to be okay, Mom," he told me 6 months after the funeral. We were sitting in my living room, the same living room where I'm standing now. "We still have each other." That's what Dad would say. "We still have each other, so we're going to be okay." And we were. Slowly, painfully, we reconstructed our lives around the Thomas-shaped hole in our world. I threw myself back into work. Julian got promoted to senior associate. We had Sunday dinners. We talked on the phone. We learned how to be a family of 2 instead of 3. By the time Julian was 29, he seemed genuinely happy again. Dating occasionally, but not seriously, focused on his career, talking about maybe starting his own firm someday. I was proud of how he'd survived losing his father, proud of the man he'd become. Then came the charity gala. It was October, 3 years ago, almost exactly 5 years after Thomas died. The New Haven Arts Foundation was hosting their annual fundraiser, and Hendricks & Stone had a table. Julian went as a representative of the firm. He called me the next morning, and I could hear the smile in his voice before he even spoke. "Mom, I met someone last night, someone incredible. Her name was Saskia," he said. She was a brand consultant, freelance, working with boutique companies on their visual identity and market positioning. She was 26, smart, beautiful, independent. She'd grown up internationally, which explained her slight accent that he couldn't quite place. They'd talked for 3 hours at the gala, exchanging ideas about design and aesthetics and the relationship between form and meaning. "She understands things, Mom," he said. "The way Dad did, the way you do. She sees the why behind the what." I was happy for him, cautiously optimistic. He'd had his heart broken before, and I knew he fell hard when he fell. "Take your time getting to know her, sweetheart," I said. "Don't rush." But Julian was already rushing. Within 2 weeks, they were seeing each other constantly. Within a month, he was talking about her like she was the missing piece he'd been searching for. "She had a difficult childhood," he told me over one of our Sunday dinners, just the two of us. "Her father died when she was young. Her mother travels constantly for work, so Saskia basically raised herself. She's so strong, Mom. She's had to be." The story matched what Saskia told me when I finally met her 6 weeks after that phone call. Julian brought her for Sunday brunch, nervous and eager for my approval. She was striking. Those green eyes, dark hair cut in a sleek bob, wearing a simple black dress that probably cost more than she claimed to make in a month as a freelance consultant. But I didn't think about that then. She shook my hand with a firm grip. "Mrs. Hollingsworth, Julian talks about you constantly. It's wonderful to finally meet you." "Please call me Beatrice," I said, studying her face. There was something practiced about her smile, like she'd rehearsed this interaction. But she was polite, engaging, asked intelligent questions about my business. She complimented my home with what seemed like genuine appreciation for the design choices. Over eggs, Benedict, and mimosas, she told her story. Father died in a car accident when she was 11. Mother was a corporate consultant who traveled internationally, currently in Singapore for 6 months. No siblings. Graduated from Boston University with a degree in marketing. Worked for a few agencies before going freelance 3 years ago because she valued independence. It all sounded plausible. Sad, but plausible. The kind of background that explained why she seemed so self-contained, why she and Julian had connected over shared understanding of loss. But even then, something nagged at me. The way her eyes didn't quite match her smile when she talked about her mother. The vagueness about her freelance work. She name-dropped brands, but never offered concrete details about projects. The slight inconsistency in her story about Boston University. First, she said she graduated in 2015, then later mentioned graduating right before I turned 23, which would have been 2016. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was looking for problems because I was terrified of losing Julian, that every mother probably felt this way when her son fell in love. Julian was radiant that whole brunch. He looked at Saskia the way Thomas used to look at me, like she was the answer to questions he didn't know he'd been asking. How could I say anything that might dim that light? They got engaged after 18 months. Julian showed me the ring first. A vintage emerald-cut diamond he'd found at an estate sale, had reset in platinum. "I want to ask her at the place where we met," he said. "The Arts Foundation. They're having another gala next month. I've already arranged everything." "Are you sure, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "You've only known her a year and a half. There's no rush." "I'm 31, Mom. I know what I want. She's what I want." His face was so open, so certain. "I love her. She makes me feel the way I felt before Dad died, like the future is something to look forward to, not just something to survive." How could I argue with that? My son, who'd spent 5 years learning how to be happy again, was happy. That's all I'd wanted for him since the day Thomas collapsed in our bedroom. The wedding was small, elegant, at a vineyard in the Hudson Valley. 60 guests, mostly our side. Julian's friends from Cornell, colleagues from work, my business associates. Saskia had almost no one. A few friends she'd made in New Haven, but no family. Her mother was in Dubai and couldn't get away. She showed me photos of a sophisticated-looking woman in her 50s standing in front of what was supposedly the Burj Khalifa. But something about the images felt staged. I paid for half the wedding without being asked. Saskia thanked me effusively, but never offered details about her own finances. Julian told me later that she was between major projects but had savings. I didn't push. They moved into a beautiful loft in New Haven's downtown, the kind of space Julian had always dreamed of. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, open concept. The rent was $3,200 a month. Julian made good money at the firm, but not that good. When I casually asked how they were managing, he said Saskia contributed equally from her consulting work. But I never saw evidence of that work. No laptop open with client calls, no meetings she had to rush to. No portfolio website I could find online. When I searched Saskia Van Doren brand consultant, nothing came up except her LinkedIn profile, which listed impressive-sounding experience but had no recommendations, no connections from supposed previous employers. I told myself I was being invasive, that it wasn't my business how my adult son and his wife managed their finances, that maybe she was just private about her work. But the doubts kept accumulating. Little things. The way she'd tense when Julian mentioned wanting to meet her mother someday. The expensive clothes that appeared in her closet despite the freelance income. The time I called their apartment and heard her on another line, her voice cold and calculating, saying something about maximizing returns before she realized I was there and switched immediately to warm cheerfulness. 4 months ago, I did something I'm not proud of. I hired a private investigator. Just for a background check, I told myself. Just to confirm that everything she'd told us was true. For 3 days, I waited for the report. For 3 days, I felt sick with guilt. What kind of mother investigates her son's wife? What kind of person does that make me? On the 3rd day, before the investigator could deliver his findings, I called him and canceled. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be that person. I had to trust my son's judgment. I had to believe that love was enough. Now I'm standing in my entryway with folders full of evidence that I should have trusted my instincts instead of my fear. That those 3 days of investigation might have saved Julian from 2 more years of manipulation. That my guilt about being that kind of mother let a predator continue using my son. I hear footsteps upstairs. Someone's awake. My hands tighten on the folders. Everything I thought I knew about my son's marriage, about his happiness, his future, his wife, is about to be destroyed. And I'm the one who has to destroy it. Because that investigator I canceled? Henrik Van Doren just did that job for free, out of desperation and guilt, and the last shred of decency he had left. The footsteps come down the stairs. I take a breath and turn toward the sound. It's time to tell my son the truth about the woman sleeping in his bed. Julian appears at the bottom of the stairs in sweatpants and a Cornell t-shirt, his brown hair sticking up on one side. He looks so young in the morning light, so unbearably vulnerable. My little boy who used to wake me up early on Saturday mornings to show me his Lego creations. My son who held my hand at his father's funeral and promised me we'd survive. Mom? He stops when he sees my face, my coat still buttoned, the folders in my hands. Where were you? I woke up and your car was gone. It's barely 7:30. We need to talk. My voice comes out steady, which surprises me given how my hands are shaking. Right now. Before Saskia wakes up, his expression shifts from confusion to concern. What's wrong? Are you okay? Did something happen? Come into my study, please. He follows me down the hall, and I can feel his worry intensifying. I close the door behind us, turn the lock. The click sounds unnaturally loud in the quiet room. This study was Thomas's domain once. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with architecture books. Now it's where I do my business planning, where I review contracts and design proposals, where I'm about to dismantle my son's entire reality. Mom, you're scaring me. Julian sits on the edge of one of the chairs, leaning forward. What's going on? I set the folders on the desk between us. At 3:47 this morning, I received a phone call from Henrik Van Doren. Julian's face goes blank. Who? Saskia's father. I watch him process this. The man she told you died in a car accident when she was 11. Except he didn't die, Julian. He lives in Hartford, in a small apartment in a not very nice building. And he called me because he said I deserve to know who his daughter really is before it was too late for you. My son stares at me like I'm speaking a language he doesn't understand. That doesn't make sense. Her father's dead. She showed me pictures from the funeral. She has his watch. She was lying. The word feels like a stone in my mouth. She's been lying about everything, sweetheart. Her father, her mother, her education, her career, all of it. No. He stands up abruptly, shaking his head. No, Mom. I know you've never been completely comfortable with Saskia, but You can't just believe some stranger who calls you in the middle of the night claiming to be Julian. Please sit down. I opened the first folder. I drove to Hartford this morning. I met him. I saw his identification, his proof of paternity, everything. And he gave me these. I spread the documents across the desk. Credit reports showing $87,000 in debt. Printed emails where Saskia discusses Julian with a friend, referring to him as an investment and a strategy. Screenshots of LinkedIn profiles from 2 previous relationships, David Rothman, Peter Hutchins, with notes from Henrik about how those relationships ended when her lies were discovered. Julian picks up the credit report with hands that have started to shake. This can't be real. Saskia doesn't have debt. She's financially stable. She contributes equally to our expenses. Does she? I asked gently. Have you actually seen bank statements? Pay stubs from clients? Any concrete evidence of her income? He opens his mouth to respond, then closes it. His face is pale now, that terrible gray color that means the blood has drained away. She shows me payments sometimes, deposits into her account. From where? From whom? I push another document toward him. This is a record of cash advances from credit cards. Julian, she's been taking out cash from credit cards and depositing it into her checking account to make it look like client payments. Stop. His voice cracks. Just stop. There has to be an explanation. Maybe it's identity theft. Maybe someone's using her name. Listen to this. I pick up my phone where I transferred the audio file from Henrik's thumb drive. This is from 2 days ago. Henrik recorded it when Saskia thought she was alone. I play the recording. Saskia's voice fills my study, clear and cold and unmistakable. I know it sounds cold, but it's practical. Julian is sweet. He'll be a good father figure, and that's fine. But I'm not in love with him. I'm in love with what he represents. Stability, money, respectability. The Hollingsworth name opens doors. His mother's connections could set me up for life if I play it right. This isn't about romance. This is about survival. I watch my son's face as he listens to his wife discuss him like he's a business acquisition. Watch the disbelief, then the recognition, then something breaking behind his eyes that makes me want to stop the recording. Take it all back, let him live in the comfortable lie. But I can't, because it gets worse. The friend's voice. But what if he finds out? Saskia's laugh. He won't. He's too trusting, too sweet. He sees what he wants to see. And his mother, for all her intuition, is too scared of losing him to actually act on her suspicions. I've seen her watching me. She knows something's off, but she'll never say anything because she's terrified of being the evil mother-in-law who ruins her son's happiness. The recording ends. Julian is frozen, staring at my phone like it's a bomb that just detonated in his hands. That's not... He swallows hard. That doesn't sound like her. The person I know wouldn't... The person you know doesn't exist. I hand him another printout, this one an email exchange from 2 weeks ago. Read this. I watch his eyes scan the words. Watch him read about how Saskia stopped taking birth control 2 months ago without telling him. How she's planning to get pregnant to secure permanent connection to the Hollingsworth family. How she knows about his trust fund that vests when he turns 35, $3 million, and she's timing everything perfectly. She stopped her birth control. His voice is barely a whisper. We've been actively trying not to get pregnant yet. We agreed we wanted to wait at least another year until my promotion was finalized. She's been taking her pill every morning. I've seen her. Probably taking something else, I say quietly. Vitamin, placebo. Something to maintain the fiction. He sets the paper down with exaggerated care, like if he moves too quickly, everything will shatter. She's trying to trap me with a baby. That's what this is saying. She's trying to get pregnant without my actual consent because she knows it would. He can't finish the sentence. Guarantee financial connection. I finish for him. Even if the marriage ends. Child support. Access to the family. Leverage with me because she knows I'd want a relationship with my grandchild. Julian stands up suddenly, walks to the window, presses his forehead against the glass. His shoulders are shaking. I want to go to him, put my arms around him the way I did when he was small and the world hurt him. But he's not small anymore, and this hurt is too big for comfort. How long did he say this has been going on? Julian's voice is muffled against the window. The lying, the pattern, since she was a teenager. Henrik said losing everything, watching her father destroy their family fortune, her mother abandoning her, going from wealth to poverty. It broke something in her. She started reinventing herself, creating versions of her story that were more palatable than the truth. What's the truth? I tell him everything Henrik told me. About Von Doren Textiles and the $12 million fortune. About Henrik's alcoholism and gambling and the 15-year descent into bankruptcy. About Marianne leaving and taking Lucas, but not Saskia. About a 12-year-old girl watching her entire world collapse and deciding she would never be vulnerable like that again. She had 2 serious relationships before you, I continue, both with older, established men. Both ended when they discovered she'd been lying about her entire identity, her education, her career, even her name in one case. Julian turns from the window. His eyes are red but dry. David Rothman, Peter Hutchins. She mentioned them once, briefly, said they were casual relationships that didn't work out, nothing serious. One of them proposed to her. Henrik has the ring receipt. My son laughs. But it's a terrible sound, jagged and wrong. Of course he does. Of course there's documentation, because this isn't just bad judgment or miscommunication. This is systematic, calculated. She studied me, didn't she? Figured out exactly what I needed after Dad died. Someone who understood loss. Someone who seemed strong but had vulnerabilities I could protect. Someone who made me feel needed and necessary and... His voice breaks. She built herself into exactly what I was looking for. Yes. There's no point in softening it. The charity gala where we met. She told me she was there as a guest, that she'd been invited by the foundation because of her work with arts organizations. Was that a lie too? I pull out another document from Henrik's folder, a copy of an employment record. She was working for the catering company that night, serving drinks. She wasn't invited. She crashed. Julian makes a sound like he's been punched. So from the very first moment, from the very first conversation, everything was... He can't finish. A performance, I say. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. He's quiet for a long moment, staring at the documents spread across my desk. Evidence of his wife's systematic deception, her calculated manipulation, her cold, strategic planning of a pregnancy that would permanently tie him to her, regardless of whether he still wanted to be tied. You knew something was wrong. He says it flatly, not quite an accusation, but close. You said so in the recording. She said you knew. I suspected. I meet his eyes. Little inconsistencies in her stories. The way she'd tense when you mentioned wanting to meet her family. The expensive clothes that appeared without explanation. Her work that had no evidence. No colleagues, no portfolio, no actual clients I could verify. Why didn't you say something? The question I've been dreading. Because I was terrified of losing you. After Dad died, you were all I had left. I couldn't bear the thought of becoming the interfering mother who drove her son away. And you were so happy, Julian. Happier than you'd been in years. How could I destroy that based on a feeling? Based on instinct? Your instincts were right. They were. And I should have trusted them. I take a breath. 4 months ago, I hired a private investigator to do a background check on Saskia. His head snaps up. You what? I couldn't live with the doubt anymore, but after 3 days, I canceled. I felt so guilty. What kind of mother investigates her son's wife? What kind of person does that make me? So I called it off before I got the report. Julian laughs that terrible laugh again. If you'd waited, if you'd gotten that report, we could have avoided... He gestures at the documents. All of this. 2 more years of lies. Me falling more in love with someone who doesn't exist. Her planning to get pregnant without my knowledge. I know. It's all I can say. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. He walks back to the desk, picks up the email about her pregnancy plans, reads it again. She talks about me like I'm an asset. Like our potential child would be collateral. She says she's not in love with me, that I'm sweet and will be a good father figure. But what she really loves is what I represent. He looks at me, and the pain in his face is almost unbearable. Is any of it real, Mom? Anything at all? The way she touches me? The conversations we have about architecture and design? The way she laughs at my jokes? Is there any part of her that actually cares about me as a person? I don't know, sweetheart. I honestly don't know. Because there are moments, his voice catches. There are moments where it feels so genuine, where she seems so present and connected and real, where I think, this is it. This is what love is supposed to feel like. Dad used to describe loving you that way, like you were the only person in the room even when there were hundreds of people. That's how Saskia makes me feel sometimes, like I'm the only person who matters. That's what makes her good at this, I say gently. If she couldn't create those moments of authentic connection, she wouldn't be able to maintain the deception. She's not a cartoon villain, Julian. She's a damaged person who learned to weaponize intimacy. He sets the paper down. How did Henrik find out? About the pregnancy plan, the recording, all of it? He went to her apartment to drop off mail. He still has a key. She wasn't home, and her laptop was open to those emails. Then 2 days ago, he was there when she made that phone call. He recorded it. And he called you because he said he couldn't watch her destroy another family, that his failures created the monster she became, but he could at least try to stop her from doing to you what he did to his own family. I pause. He's an alcoholic, Julian. Destroyed his entire family fortune through drinking and gambling. Lost everything. That's the truth Saskia was hiding. Not that he's dead, but that he's a broken man living in a shabby apartment in Hartford, barely surviving on part-time work at a hardware store. That's why she invented the Europe story, the dead father story, because the truth was too embarrassing. Yes, and because if we ever met him, the whole elaborate fiction would fall apart. Julian walks around the study, touching things without seeing them. Books on shelves, framed photos of him at various ages, the model of falling water that Thomas gave him for his 16th birthday. He stops in front of a picture of his father, taken a month before he died. Thomas is smiling, arm around me in our garden, looking healthy and happy and alive. Dad would know what to do, Julian says quietly. He always knew what to do. Your father would tell you the same thing I'm going to tell you, that you deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not what you can provide, that you're worth more than being someone's financial strategy. I wanted so badly to feel that way again. His voice breaks, the way I felt before he died. Like the future was full of possibility instead of just emptiness. She gave me that feeling back, or I thought she did, but it was all manufactured, calculated. She studied my vulnerabilities and exploited them. Yes. He turns to face me. What do I do now? You confront her. You tell her you know the truth, and you end this marriage before she succeeds in getting pregnant and trapping you for the next 18 years. Just like that. Just walk up there and tell my wife I know she's been lying about everything, that I know she's trying to get pregnant without my consent, that our entire relationship is based on manipulation? Would you rather wait? I ask. Give her more time to get pregnant? More time to dig herself deeper into your life? Julian, every day you wait is another day she's having unprotected sex with you while you believe you're being careful. Another day she's strategizing about how to secure permanent access to your money and our family. He flinches. I can't believe I'm hearing these words, that I'm having this conversation about my wife. I know, and I do. I see it in his face, the cognitive dissonance of reconciling the woman he loves with the woman in these documents. The person who holds him at night with the person who discusses him coldly with friends. The wife who seems genuinely happy with him with the strategist timing a pregnancy for maximum financial leverage. Does she have any of her own things here? He asks. At your house? Toiletries in the guest bathroom. Some clothes in the closet. Why? Because I want her out of here before I talk to her. I want her in our apartment, on neutral territory, not in your home where she can perform for you or manipulate the situation. That's smart. He checks his phone. It's 7:53. She usually sleeps until at least 8:30 on weekends. I'll tell her we need to get home, that I have a work emergency or something. Get her out of here. Then I'll... He stops, swallows hard. Then I'll show her these documents and tell her the marriage is over. Do you want me to come with you? No. He shakes his head. This is something I need to do alone. But thank you for telling me, for going to Hartford in the middle of the night to meet her father, for having the courage to show me this even though you knew it would destroy me. You're not destroyed, I say firmly. You're hurt, you're betrayed, but you're not destroyed. You're Thomas Hollingsworth's son. You survived losing your father. You'll survive losing a woman who never really existed in the first place. He tries to smile, but it doesn't reach his eyes. I should go wake her up, make the excuse, get us home. Julian? I stop him at the door. I love you. No matter what happens next, no matter how messy this gets, I love you and I'm here. I know, Mom. He hugs me, hard and quick. I'm sorry I didn't trust your instincts earlier. I'm sorry I made you feel like you couldn't tell me you had doubts. Don't apologize for believing the best in people. That's not a flaw, sweetheart. That's who you are. Saskia exploited it, but don't let her take that away from you. He nods, not quite believing me yet, and heads upstairs. I hear him moving around in the guest room, his voice low and muffled through the ceiling as he wakes Saskia. I hear her respond, groggy and confused. I hear them packing, the sounds of a normal couple getting ready to leave after staying the night with family. But nothing is normal anymore. In the next few hours, my son is going to confront his wife with evidence of systematic deception. He's going to watch her face when she realizes the game is over. He's going to hear whatever excuses or justifications or manipulations she tries to deploy. And I'm going to wait here, in my home, hoping I did the right thing, hoping that destruction now prevents worse destruction later, hoping that the truth, however devastating, is better than a life built on lies. I hear them coming down the stairs. Saskia's voice carries down the hallway, bright and cheerful. Thanks again for having us, Beatrice. It was lovely as always. I step out of my study. She's dressed in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, hair pulled back, looking young and innocent, and nothing like the calculating strategist in those recordings. She smiles at me, warm and genuine seeming. Of course, I manage. Drive safely. Julian won't meet my eyes. He's carrying their overnight bag, moving mechanically. I'll call you later, Mom. They leave. I watch through the window as Julian opens the car door for Saskia, as she gets in still smiling, as they drive away down my street toward New Haven, and the conversation that will end their marriage. I sink onto my couch, suddenly exhausted. It's 8:15 on a Saturday morning. In less than 5 hours, I've driven to Hartford, met my daughter-in-law's supposedly dead father, learned that my son's entire marriage is a fraud, and set in motion the destruction of everything he thought he was building. My phone buzzes. A text from Julian. Thank you. I'm terrified. But thank you. I text back, you're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. I don't know if I believe it yet, but I need him to believe it. I need him to know that whatever happens in the next few hours, whatever pain comes from the truth, he has someone in his corner who will always protect him, even when protecting him means breaking his heart. The text comes through at 9:47 a.m., just 3 words from Julian. She's not denying. My hands shake as I type back, are you okay? The reply takes 3 minutes. 3 minutes where I imagine every possible scenario. Saskia crying, manipulating, spinning new lies. Saskia angry, threatening, revealing depths of cruelty we haven't seen yet. Saskia running, disappearing, leaving Julian with questions that will haunt him forever. Finally, can you come? I need you here. I'm in my car within 2 minutes. The drive to New Haven feels endless, even though it's only 30 minutes. I keep my phone on the passenger seat, watching for updates, but nothing comes. Just that one request, those 4 words that tell me my son needs his mother. Their loft is in a converted textile factory downtown, all exposed brick and industrial windows. I've always loved this space, loved that Julian found somewhere that honored the building's history while creating something modern and livable. Now I wonder how much of choosing this place was his dream, and how much was Saskia's calculation. Did she push for the expensive loft because she wanted the address, the prestige, the Instagram-worthy backdrop for the life she was constructing? I take the elevator to the 4th floor. The door to their apartment is slightly ajar. I push it open and step into a scene I'll never forget. Julian is sitting on their leather couch, surrounded by papers, the documents I gave him, plus more that he's apparently printed. Saskia is standing by the windows, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the New Haven skyline. She's changed clothes since leaving my house. Now she's wearing black jeans and a silk blouse, barefoot, hair down. She looks smaller somehow, less polished than usual. When she hears me enter, she turns. The mask is completely gone. No warm smile, no pretense of affection. Her face is cold and hard, eyes red but dry. She looks at me with such pure hatred that I actually take a step back. Of course you called her. Saskia says to Julian, voice flat. Of course Mommy comes to save the day. Don't. Julian's voice is raw but firm. You don't get to do that. You don't get to make this about my relationship with my mother when we're talking about you lying to me for 3 years. I move to sit in the chair across from Julian, putting myself between them. What's happened so far? I showed her everything. Julian gestures at the documents. The credit reports, the emails, the recording. Asked her to explain. To tell me any of it was fake or taken out of context or… He stops, swallows hard. She didn't. She just stood there and listened to her own voice talking about me like I'm an investment portfolio. And when it finished, she said, I suppose I should have been more careful where I had those conversations. I look at Saskia. That's what you said? Not that it wasn't true, but that you should have been more careful? She meets my gaze steadily. What would be the point in denying it? You have recordings, documentation, my drunk father's testimony. She spits the word father like it's poison. Julian knows the truth now. The question is what happens next. What happens next is divorce, Julian says. Obviously, immediately. Is it obvious? Saskia turns from the window, and I see something calculating slide behind her eyes, the strategist reassessing her options in real time. You're hurt right now. Angry. But we've built a life together, Julian. 2 years of marriage, 3 years total. That's real, regardless of how it started. None of it was real. He stands up, and I can see him physically restraining himself from moving toward her. You admitted it yourself in that recording. You're not in love with me. You're in love with what I represent. I said that in a moment of… She stops, recalibrates. I was venting to a friend, processing complicated feelings. People say things they don't mean when they're working through emotions. You stopped taking birth control without telling me. Julian's voice rises. You've been trying to get pregnant without my actual consent. How is that you processing feelings? For the first time, something flickers across Saskia's face that might be shame, but it's gone so quickly I can't be sure it was ever there. I want a family. You want a family. I adjusted the timeline slightly. You lied about birth control so you could trap me with a pregnancy. Julian is shaking now. You calculated that once you were pregnant, I'd be tied to you financially even if the marriage ended. That's not adjusting a timeline, that's reproductive coercion. Don't be dramatic. But Saskia's voice has an edge to it now. She's losing control of the narrative, and she knows it. Your father is alive. I speak for the first time since asking my initial question. You told Julian he died in a car accident when you were 11. You showed him fake funeral photos. You've been maintaining that lie for 3 years. Explain that. Saskia's laugh is bitter. My father? You want me to explain my father? She wheels on me, and all the resentment she's been hiding pours out. He destroyed everything. Our family business, 3 generations of work gone because he couldn't stop drinking and gambling. My mother left because she couldn't watch him self-destruct anymore. She took Lucas and abandoned me with him. Do you know what it's like to watch your entire life evaporate? To go from private schools and ski trips to food stamps and eviction notices? That's terrible, I say quietly. Truly. But it doesn't justify what? Survival? She's pacing now, animated in a way I've never seen her. You don't understand what it's like, Beatrice. You married well. You built your little boutique with your husband's support and safety net. You've never known what it's like to have nothing, to realize that in this world, nobody's going to save you. You have to save yourself. By lying to everyone? By using people? Julian's voice breaks. I loved you, Saskia. I would have helped you if you'd just been honest. If you told me you had debt. If you told me about your father. Would you? She spins to face him. Really? If we'd met that night and I'd said, Hi, I'm Saskia. I'm actually working as a caterer tonight even though I'm pretending to be a guest. I have a drunk father living in poverty. I'm drowning in debt from trying to maintain an image I can't afford. And I saw you across the room and thought you'd be perfect because you're successful and grieving and vulnerable. You would have fallen in love with me then? The silence that follows is devastating, because we all know the answer is no. You're right, Julian finally says. If you'd been honest, I probably wouldn't have gotten involved, because that person, the honest version, sounds like someone with serious problems who needed therapy and financial counseling, not a relationship. But you didn't give me the choice. You created a character designed specifically to appeal to me. That's not survival, Saskia. That's predatory. She flinches like he's hit her. I'm not a predator. I'm someone who did what she had to do. To what end? I ask. Let's say you'd succeeded in getting pregnant. Let's say Julian never found out the truth. What was the long-term plan? Maintain the lies forever? Raise a child in a marriage built on deception? The plan was to build a real life. Saskia's voice drops, and for just a moment, I hear something genuine beneath the calculation. The plan was that eventually the lies wouldn't matter, because the relationship would be real, that I'd grow to actually love him, that the foundation wouldn't matter if the structure we built on it was solid. But you don't love him, Julian says. You said it yourself. You're not in love with me. I care about you. She looks at him, and I genuinely can't tell if what I see in her face is real emotion or another performance. I do, Julian. Maybe not the way you want, maybe not the way you deserve, but you've been good to me. Kind, patient. You've made me feel safe in a way I haven't felt since I was a child. That's not love, he says quietly. That's convenience, security. It's you using my kindness to create stability for yourself while planning an exit strategy in case I ever became inconvenient. Saskia is quiet for a long moment. Then she walks to the couch and sits down, suddenly looking exhausted. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? I am. That I wish I'd done things differently? I do. But I can't change what happened. I can only tell you that the last 3 years, they haven't been completely fake. Parts of it were real. Which parts? Julian's voice is desperate now. Which conversations? Which moments? Which nights? How do I know what was real and what was you performing? I don't know. She looks up at him, and there are finally tears in her eyes. I've been performing for so long, I don't always know the difference anymore. And there it is. The truth beneath the lies, beneath the strategies. A woman so damaged by her childhood trauma that she's lost the ability to distinguish between genuine connection and strategic manipulation. Someone who's been in survival mode so long she doesn't remember how to actually live. It's tragic. It's also not an excuse. I want you out, Julian says. Pack whatever you need right now. I'll arrange for the rest of your things to be shipped wherever you want. But I want you out of this apartment today. Saskia stands slowly. And if I'm pregnant? You don't know that I'm not. The cruelty of that statement, the implicit threat, hangs in the air. Then we'll deal with that when we know for certain, Julian says. But either way, this marriage is over. I'll have divorce papers filed by Monday. She nods slowly, like she's processing the end of her carefully constructed plan. Then she walks toward the bedroom. At the doorway, she pauses and looks back at me. You win, Beatrice. You get your son back. I hope that satisfies you. This isn't about winning, I say. This is about my son deserving honesty, something you were never capable of giving him. She disappears into the bedroom. Julian sinks back onto the couch, puts his head in his hands. Is this really happening? His voice is muffled. Is my marriage really ending before noon on a Saturday? I move to sit beside him, put my arm around his shoulders. Yes, sweetheart, it is, and I'm so sorry. She almost made me feel bad for her. At the end, the way she talked about not knowing what's real anymore. She's a person in pain, I acknowledge, but people in pain can still cause tremendous damage. You can have compassion for what made her this way, while still protecting yourself from what she's become. We sit in silence, listening to Saskia move around in the bedroom, packing up pieces of the life she tried to build on a foundation of lies. The turning point isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just this, a quiet Saturday morning, papers spread across a coffee table, and the moment when pretense finally crumbles into truth. Saskia emerges from the bedroom 20 minutes later with 2 suitcases and a determined expression that immediately puts me on edge. She's pulled her hair back into a sleek ponytail and reapplied makeup. The transformation is jarring. She looks polished again, controlled, like she's preparing for battle rather than leaving. I need to say something before I go. She sets the suitcases down by the door but doesn't move toward them. Instead, she walks back into the living room and stands in front of Julian. And you both need to listen. Really listen. Saskia, there's nothing left to... Julian starts, but she cuts him off. You think I'm the villain in this story. Her voice is steady, almost clinical. You think I'm some calculating monster who targeted you for your money and your family connections. And maybe that's partially true, but let me tell you what I see when I look at this situation. She gestures around the loft. This apartment costs $3,200 a month. You told me when we moved in that it was our place, that we were building our life together. But Julian, whose name is on the lease? He shifts uncomfortably. Mine. But that's just because you have the established credit, the verified income, the family safety net. She turns to me. When we got married, Beatrice paid for half the wedding without blinking. $50,000, just like that. Do you know what I could have done with $50,000? I could have paid off my debt, started over. But instead, it went to flowers and a photographer and an open bar for people I didn't know. You never said you didn't want a wedding, Julian says. How could I? You were so excited. Your mother was so generous. And I knew that if I said, actually, can we elope and use that money to pay off my credit cards? You would have started asking questions. Questions I couldn't answer without revealing things I wasn't ready to reveal. I feel anger rising in my chest. So you're blaming us for your lies? For not somehow intuiting that you needed money while you were pretending to be financially stable? I'm not blaming anyone. Saskia's voice is sharp. I'm explaining that this situation is more complicated than bad woman tricks innocent man. You want to know why I stopped taking birth control without telling Julian? Because I'm 29 years old. Because my gynecologist told me I have PCOS and getting pregnant might be difficult, and time matters. Because every time I tried to have a serious conversation about our timeline for children, Julian would say, soon, just let me get this promotion first, let me finish this project first. And I knew that soon could turn into years. That doesn't give you the right to make that decision unilaterally, Julian says, but his voice is less certain now. You're right, it doesn't. She sits down in the chair across from him, and I see genuine emotion cross her face. But I panicked. I saw my window closing. I saw my one chance to have a family, to build something permanent, to not be alone anymore. And I took it. Was it wrong? Yes. Was it desperate? Absolutely. Does it make me a monster? The question hangs there. I want to say yes. I want to say that reproductive coercion is monstrous, that lying about birth control is unforgivable. But the raw pain in her voice makes it more complicated than I want it to be. What about the recording? I ask. What about telling your friend that you're not in love with Julian, that you're in love with what he represents? Saskia looks at me directly. Have you never said something you didn't completely mean? Never vented to a friend about your husband, about your family, about your life? Never reduced complex feelings to simple, harsh statements because you were frustrated or tired or scared? That's different, I say. But even as I say it, I remember conversations with my own friends after Thomas died. Times I said things like, I'm so tired of being the widow. I'm tired of people looking at me with pity. Did I mean I wished Thomas hadn't died? Of course not. But if someone had recorded those moments and played them back without context, is it? Saskia presses. Because I remember a conversation I overheard between you and one of your designer friends about 6 months ago. You were at that restaurant in Greenwich, the Italian place. I was there picking up takeout. You didn't see me. And I heard you say, sometimes I worry Julian chose Saskia because he was lonely after Thomas, not because she was right for him. But what can I do? He's an adult. I have to trust his judgment even when my instincts scream otherwise. My stomach drops. I remember that conversation. I remember saying exactly those words to Diane over wine and risotto. How did that make me feel? Saskia continues. Knowing my mother-in-law thought I was a rebound? A mistake? That her instincts were screaming against me? But I never confronted you. I never told Julian. Because I understood that you were processing your own complicated feelings. That you were worried about your son. That people say things to their friends that sound harsher than they mean them. That's not the same as planning a pregnancy without consent, Julian says. But he sounds less sure than before. No, it's not. Saskia turns back to him. But it demonstrates that we all have private thoughts that sound worse when exposed. That recording you played, that was me at my most scared, my most defensive, trying to convince myself and my friend that I was in control of a situation where I actually felt completely out of control. She stands and walks to the windows, looking out over New Haven. The truth is, I don't know if I love you, Julian. I don't know if I know how to love anyone. My father's love came with violence and chaos. My mother's love came with abandonment. Every relationship I've seen has been transactional or destructive or both. So when you asked me 3 years ago what I was looking for in a relationship, and I gave you that beautiful answer about partnership and respect and growth, I was telling you what I'd read in books, what I'd seen in movies, what I thought love was supposed to look like. She turns back to face us. But here's what I do know. When you have nightmares about your father, I'm the one who holds you. When you get stressed about deadlines, I'm the one who makes sure you eat and sleep. When you got passed over for that promotion last year, I'm the one who sat with you for 3 hours while you processed the disappointment. Were those performances? Or were they real? I don't know, Julian whispers. That's the problem. I don't know what was real. Neither do I. Saskia's voice breaks. That's what I've been trying to tell you. I've been pretending for so long that the lines are completely blurred. Did I target you initially? Yes. Did I see you as a solution to my problems? Yes. But did something shift over 3 years? Did I start to actually care about whether you were happy, whether you were healthy, whether you felt loved? I think so. I think I did. But I can't prove it. And you'll never be able to trust it. She walks to the coffee table and picks up the document showing her debt. You want to know why I have $87,000 in credit card debt? It's not because I'm living extravagantly. It's because I've been trying to maintain the image of someone who belongs in your world. Do you know how much it costs to have the right clothes for your firm's events, the right gifts for your colleagues, the right appearance for the charity galas and the holiday parties and the Sunday brunches with your mother? I never asked you to. Julian starts. You didn't have to ask. Her voice rises for the first time. You didn't have to say, Saskia, please buy expensive clothes and maintain an image that's slowly bankrupting you. Because it was implicit. Because when I showed up to that first firm party wearing a dress from Target, I saw the way the other wives looked at me. I saw your colleague's wife literally whisper to someone else while looking at my shoes. And I knew that if I wanted to be accepted in your world, I had to look the part, even if I couldn't afford it. So this is my fault? Julian's voice is rising too. Your debt is my fault? Your lies are my fault? Because I didn't explicitly tell you that you didn't need to impress people? No, Saskia is shouting now, and I see years of frustration pouring out. It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's what happens when someone from my world tries to fit into yours. You don't see it, Julian. You've never had to see it. But there's a cost to accessing spaces you weren't born into. A cost that people like you and your mother never have to calculate because you've always belonged. She's crying now, actually crying, and I can't tell if it's manipulation or genuine breakdown. Maybe it's both. Maybe that's the point. Maybe she's so damaged that she can't separate her real emotions from her strategic ones anymore. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she continues through tears. I'm not asking you to take me back. I know that's impossible. I know I destroyed whatever trust we had. But I'm asking you, both of you, to understand that this isn't a simple story about a villain and a victim. It's a story about two people from different worlds who tried to build something together and failed because one of them was too broken to build anything on a foundation of honesty. Julian stands and walks to her. For a moment, I think he's going to embrace her. Instead, he stops a few feet away, maintaining distance. You're right that it's complicated, he says quietly. You're right that I'll never fully understand what it's like to struggle the way you have. But Saskia, you're wrong about one fundamental thing. What? You keep talking about this as a failure, as something that didn't work out, but it was never real enough to fail. You can't destroy a relationship that was built on a character you were playing. What's ending isn't our marriage, it's your performance. And yes, I'm sure that's painful for you, but it's necessary. She flinches like he's slapped her. So that's it? 3 years together and you're just done? What choice do I have? His voice is gentle but firm. You admitted you don't know if you love me. You admitted you stopped birth control without my knowledge. You admitted that you've been lying about fundamental aspects of who you are since the day we met. How do I move forward from that? How do I ever trust you again? You could try. It's desperate now. the mask completely gone. People rebuild trust after infidelity, after betrayal. We could go to therapy. I could show you bank statements, account records, everything. I could prove to you that I'm trying to change. Could you? I speak for the first time in several minutes. Could you actually stop performing, stop calculating, stop seeing relationships as strategies? Saskia looks at me, and for a moment, I see something raw and honest in her face. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I can, but I'd like the chance to try. With someone else, Julian says, not with me. I can't be your experiment in authenticity. I can't be the person you practice being real with. I deserve, his voice catches, I deserve someone who knows they love me, who isn't trying to figure out if their feelings are real or performed. And you deserve the chance to actually heal instead of just jumping into another relationship where you feel like you have to be someone you're not. So this is you being noble? There's bitterness in Saskia's voice now. Ending things for my own good? No. This is me being honest, something you could never quite manage. Saskia walks to the door, picks up her suitcases. Then she stops and turns back one more time. Your father's funeral. You talked about him constantly those first few months, about how he was kind, how he was generous, how he always saw the best in people. Do you know what I thought when you told me those stories? Julian shakes his head. I thought, I wish I'd had a father like that. I wish someone had loved me the way Thomas Hollingsworth loved his son. And I know I don't have any right to say this, but being with you let me imagine what my life could have been like. If my father hadn't destroyed everything, if my mother hadn't left, if I'd grown up with stability and love and safety, being with you was the closest I ever got to feeling like I belonged somewhere. That's not love, Saskia. Julian's voice is breaking. That's trauma. And you can't build a marriage on trying to heal your childhood through someone else. She nods slowly. You're probably right. She opens the door, then pauses one final time. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not for getting caught, for actually hurting you. You didn't deserve that. Whatever else was fake, that part is real. I am genuinely sorry. Then she's gone. The door closes behind her with a soft click that somehow sounds louder than if she'd slammed it. Julian stands frozen for a long moment. Then he walks to the couch and sits down heavily, like his legs won't hold him anymore. Did I just make a terrible mistake? He asks. She was right about some things. About me being privileged in ways I don't see. About the cost of trying to fit into a world you weren't born into. Should I have? Could we have? No. I sit beside him and take his hand. She was right about those things, but that doesn't excuse what she did. Yes, there are structural inequalities. Yes, it's harder to access certain spaces without money or connections, but plenty of people face those challenges without lying about their entire identity, without manipulating partners, without planning pregnancies as financial security strategies. She seemed so genuine at the end, so vulnerable. She probably was. Genuine and calculating aren't mutually exclusive. She can be genuinely hurt that she got caught while also having been genuinely manipulative. That's what makes people like her so effective. They believe their own performances. Julian is quiet for a long time. Then he says, I heard what she said. About overhearing you at that restaurant. About you thinking I chose her because I was lonely. Julian, were you right? Did I choose her because I missed Dad? Because I was trying to fill a void? I consider lying, softening it. But he deserves honesty after years of deception. Maybe partially, but that doesn't make your feelings less real. Grief makes us vulnerable in specific ways. But what you built with her, or tried to build, that came from a real place in you. She exploited your vulnerability, yes. But the vulnerability itself, the desire for connection, the capacity for love, those were all real. And they still are. He leans his head on my shoulder, and I put my arm around him. We sit like that for a long time. In the loft, he'll probably have to leave now, surrounded by evidence of a relationship that was never quite what it seemed. What do I do now? He finally asks. Now? You heal. You grieve what you thought you had. You learn to trust yourself again. And eventually, you open yourself up to something real with someone who doesn't need to perform to be worthy of you. That sounds exhausting. It is, but you'll do it. Because you're Thomas Hollingsworth's son, and we don't stay broken. Outside, the November sun is bright and cold. Somewhere in New Haven, Saskia is probably in a hotel room, calculating her next move. Somewhere in Hartford, Henrik is probably drunk or trying not to be, living with the knowledge that he betrayed his daughter to save my son. And here, in this loft full of beautiful things and broken dreams, my son begins the hard work of putting himself back together. The climax isn't always the loudest moment. Sometimes it's just this: a quiet conversation, a door closing, and the moment when you choose truth over comfort, honesty over illusion, even when it breaks your heart. 4 months later, I'm sitting in my office reviewing fabric swatches when Julian calls. It's a Tuesday afternoon in March, and through my window, I can see the first hints of spring emerging in Greenwich. Crocuses pushing through the last patches of snow, trees beginning to bud. "Hey, Mom, you busy?" "Never too busy for you. What's going on?" "Divorce is finalized. Papers came through this morning." I set down the swatches. "How are you feeling?" There's a pause, and I can hear him thinking. Relieved, mostly. A little sad. Weird that 3 years of my life can be reduced to a legal document saying it never really counted for anything. "It counted," I say gently. "Just not in the way you thought it did. You learned things about yourself, about what you need, about red flags you'll recognize next time." "Yeah." He sounds tired but not broken. "That's progress. There's something else. Saskia texted me yesterday. First contact since she left in November." My stomach tightens. "What did she say?" "That she's in Miami, working as an actual legitimate brand consultant for a startup, that she's in therapy twice a week, and that she wanted me to know she wasn't pregnant. She got her period 2 weeks after she moved out, so we don't have to worry about that particular complication. That's good news, about the pregnancy at least. She also said," he pauses, "she said she's sorry, really sorry. That therapy is helping her understand how damaged she was, how much she was operating from trauma instead of genuine connection. She said she hopes someday I can forgive her, but she understands if I can't." How did that make you feel? Honestly, a little validated, like maybe the vulnerability she showed at the end wasn't completely an act, but also, it doesn't change anything. She still did what she did. Her reasons don't erase the impact. That's very mature of you. He laughs, short and self-deprecating. "Therapy helps. I'm seeing someone too. Dr. Richardson, that psychologist you recommended. She's been good, helping me process the grief that I never fully dealt with after Dad died, helping me see how that vulnerability made me a target for someone like Saskia." We talk for a few more minutes about logistics. He's moving to a smaller apartment next month, somewhere more affordable, somewhere that's entirely his. He started running again, something he gave up after Thomas died. He's reconnected with friends from Cornell he'd lost touch with during the marriage. "You sound good, sweetheart," I tell him. "Really good. I'm getting there. Some days are harder than others, but I'm getting there." After we hang up, I sit for a moment with the phone in my hand, thinking about how much has changed since that 3:47 a.m. phone call from Henrik van Doren. Henrik is 3 months sober now. He completed the residential treatment program I paid for and moved into a sober living facility in Hartford. He calls me once a week to update me on his progress, to thank me again for giving him a chance at redemption. Last week, he told me he started attending AA meetings with a sponsor who's been sober 15 years. "I can't undo what I did to Saskia," he said. "I can't give her back the childhood I destroyed, but I can at least become someone who doesn't create more damage." Saskia hasn't contacted him. According to Henrik, she sent one text after he called me that night. "I will never forgive you for this." He saved it, reads it sometimes as a reminder of the cost of doing the right thing. I told him that someday, maybe, she'll understand that he saved her from herself, that preventing her from trapping Julian with a pregnancy might have been the most loving thing he ever did for her. He wants to believe that. I'm not sure I do. My phone buzzes with a text from Julian. "Forgot to mention, I'm seeing someone, casually, nothing serious yet, but wanted you to know so you don't worry that I'm closed off forever." I smile and text back, "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Take your time. Trust yourself." I do. Finally. Thanks for that. I think about what it cost to get here. The drive to Hartford in the middle of the night. The decision to show Julian those documents, knowing they would shatter him. The weeks after, when he barely ate, barely slept, barely functioned beyond the minimum requirements of his job. The calls at 2 a.m. when he couldn't sleep, when he needed to talk through another memory that now felt tainted, another moment he couldn't trust. But I also think about what we gained. Julian knows now that his instincts matter, that vulnerability doesn't mean naivete, that he can survive devastation and come out whole on the other side. He knows that love shouldn't require performance, that partnership should be built on honesty, that he deserves someone who knows, really knows, that they love him. And I learned something too. I learned that sometimes protecting the people we love means doing the hard, ugly thing, means delivering devastating news, means standing firm even when they're angry or hurt, or wishing we just left well enough alone. I learned that my instincts are worth trusting, that intuition matters, that not wanting to be the interfering mother shouldn't override genuine concern for my child's well-being. I learned that redemption is complicated, that people like Henrik can do terrible damage and still find their way back to decency, that people like Saskia can be both victim and victimizer, both genuinely wounded and genuinely cruel, that the world isn't divided neatly into heroes and villains, but into people trying to survive their traumas in ways that sometimes hurt others. My office door opens, and my assistant pokes her head in. "Mrs. Hollingsworth? The Hendersons are here for their 3 o'clock consultation." "I'll be right there." I gather my materials and head to the conference room, where a young couple in their early 30s is waiting to discuss renovating their first home. They're nervous, excited, holding hands across the table. They remind me of Thomas and me at that age, full of dreams about the life we'd build together. I spend the next hour helping them envision possibilities, showing them fabric swatches and paint colors, talking about how spaces can be transformed with vision and patience and care. It's what I've always loved about my work, taking something damaged or outdated and helping people see its potential. When they leave, promising to review my proposal and get back to me, I return to my office and find another text from Julian. "By the way, I told the new woman about Saskia, about everything, on the second date. Figured if I'm doing this differently, I need to be honest from the start about my baggage. She didn't run. Said everyone has baggage, the question is whether you're dealing with it or letting it control you." "She sounds wise," I text back. "She's a landscape architect. Met her through work. She's funny, Mom. And real. Like, genuinely herself without any performance. It's refreshing." I smile at my phone. It's too early to know if this new relationship will work out. And it doesn't really matter. What matters is that Julian is trying again. That he hasn't let Saskia's betrayal close him off from the possibility of genuine connection. That night, I have dinner alone in my kitchen, grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, a glass of Pinot Grigio, classical music playing softly. I think about Thomas, about how he would have handled all of this. He would have been devastated for Julian, furious at Saskia, proud of how our son survived it. He would have been grateful for Henrik's intervention, complicated as it was. "We did good, Thomas," I say aloud to the empty kitchen. "Our boy is going to be okay." I imagine I can hear his response. "Because of you, B. You protected him when it mattered most." But that's not quite true. I protected him, yes, but Henrik protected him first. A broken alcoholic living in a shabby apartment in Hartford, drowning in shame and regret, found the courage to betray his own daughter to prevent her from destroying another life. That's a kind of protection I never could have provided. The ugly, sacrificial kind that comes from someone who knows exactly what damage looks like because they've caused it themselves. 6 months from now, Julian will introduce me to the landscape architect. Her name will be Rebecca, and she'll be genuine and funny and exactly herself. They'll move slowly, carefully, building something on a foundation of honesty instead of performance. A year from now, Julian will tell me he thinks he might want to start his own firm after all, that Saskia's betrayal somehow freed him to take risks he was too scared to take before. 2 years from now, Henrik will be 2 years sober and working full-time at an architecture supply company, having reconnected with an old colleague who gave him a chance. He'll send Julian a letter apologizing for the role he played in Saskia's deception, for not intervening sooner, for all the damage his failures caused. Julian will write back saying he forgives him, that everyone deserves a chance at redemption. And Saskia, I don't know what becomes of her. Maybe therapy really does help her understand herself better. Maybe she builds something real in Miami, learns to be honest, finds a way to heal the wounds her father's destruction and her mother's abandonment left behind. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she moves from city to city, relationship to relationship, forever chasing security through deception because it's the only strategy she knows. I hope for the former. But I've learned that some people aren't ready to change, aren't capable of it yet, and that's not my responsibility to fix. What I know is this, that 3:47 a.m. phone call, as devastating as it was, saved my son. It exposed a truth that needed exposing. It ended a relationship that was slowly poisoning Julian from the inside, making him doubt his instincts, making him smaller and more uncertain. Sometimes love looks like destruction. Sometimes protection means shattering comfortable illusions. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for the people we care about is tell them the truth, even when, especially when, the truth is unbearable. I finish my wine and rinse the glass. Outside my window, the March evening is deepening into night. Somewhere in New Haven, Julian is probably working late on a project, or maybe he's on a date with Rebecca the landscape architect, learning how to trust again. Somewhere in Hartford, Henrik is probably at an AA meeting, working through his 8th or 9th step. Somewhere in Miami, Saskia is probably reinventing herself once again, or maybe, just maybe, learning how to finally be herself. And here in Greenwich, in the house Thomas and I built together, where we raised our son to be kind and trusting and good, I feel something settle in my chest. Peace, maybe. Or just the quiet knowledge that when it mattered most, I chose truth over comfort, my son's well-being over my own fear of being the interfering mother. The phone rings one more time. Julian again. Sorry to keep calling. I wanted to say thank you for that morning, for showing me those documents even though you knew it would destroy me. You saved me, Mom, from years of lies, from a pregnancy that would have tied me to her forever, from becoming someone I wouldn't recognize. So thank you. My throat tightens. You would have done the same for me, sweetheart. Yeah, I would have, because that's what we do. We protect each other. Always, I promise, no matter what. After we say goodbye, I sit in my quiet house and feel grateful. For Henrik's desperate courage, for Julian's resilience, for the truth that set us all free, however painful it was. For the reminder that sometimes the hardest conversations are the most necessary ones, and that love, real love, means having them anyway.